As we make our way into Book 3 of Hal Leonard, we come on page 7 to Arkansas Traveler, which is a fiddle reel from the 1800s. Reels are a dance type that came from Scotland, then Ireland, and into America with the settlers. It became a folk dance and is associated a lot with bluegrass music. It's a 4/4 or a 2/4 music. This one's in 2/4 with 16th notes. On page 6, they give you another breakdown and run through on the 16th notes. If you need a review on that, go back to the video called Sweet 16, where we teach and practice the 16th notes. But do on page 6 work through all of the exercises they have. We'll do all our counting in this song rather than that exercise page, but try to master that. Each of these figures should become something that you can almost hear at a glance. 16th notes are generally played straight, obviously, as they're a division of 8th notes. 8th notes are half a beat. They're half of what a quarter note is. 16th notes are half of the 8th note. So there's 4 of them in every quarter note. To subdivide a quarter note into 16ths or semiquavers, we count them as 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. So that's what we have here at first. We have 4 16th notes with the double beam. That's one single beat on beat 1 of this 2/4 music. 1 E and a. On the F chord, we have 2 A notes. Those are just 8th notes. So they get 2 and. Or the first of the 8s could be 2 E, and the second of the 8s and a, if you're continuing to count out all the subdivisions. So I'd have 1 E and a 2 and 1 and 2. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and a 2 and, which would get us through the first line. Here we have 2 16ths, 1 E. Instead of 2 more 16ths, the remaining 4 and we have only an 8th note. So and become one note, or just and for the 8th note. Same thing here. So when you see these, you hear the ba 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 ba. 1 E and 2 E and. 1 E and a 2 and 1 and 2. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2. That gets us through the A section, which is played twice, and then the B section played twice. In your book and on the scan that I'll show you, there's a harmony line written to this, a counterpoint, which is basically thirds with some variations in the rhythms. I'm not going to play those right now, and I'm not going to write them out here, but I think at the end of this I'll play through it so you can practice it as well. In the B section, there's nothing new in the rhythms except for one bar. Here we have our 2 beats divided into 16ths. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a. Here on the last one on this line, we see, if you thought of 2 8th notes, 1 and, this one's been divided into 16ths, so it's 1 and a. Or if you think of your 4 16ths, the first 2 are combined in this 8th note. This is 1 E, and those are and a. So 1 and a. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2. Most of the melody ideas that we've analyzed in other songs will be apparent here. As you can see from the beginning, C, E, and C in this first figure are all part of a C chord, so we're passing through the non-chord tone, the D. These A's are chord tones on the F, they're the 3. G's are chord tones on the G, they're the root obviously. Root, C on a C chord. D, D, D on a G chord, those are the 5ths. E, E, E on the C are thirds. Here we start on the 5th, step up to an upper neighbor tone E, the 6th, step back down to the D, the 5th. Here's something interesting. We hit 2 non-chord tones in a row, and we're leaping. We leap from 1, escape down to the next, and settle down to the G. So we create 2 tension notes from the D to the G. The C and the A note are both tensions against the G chord. Here are the Ds, C, the sus, dropping to the 2, but it settles onto the G. Those sound like a D7 chord. But they're not playing the D7 chord, they're staying on the G chord. So they put the tension across the G chord. Same melody, same melody. Here we're still on a C chord, lower neighbor tone, the B, which is the major 7, C, B, C, G. Those are all chord tones other than the B. On the F, we have chord tones A and C. Leap down from the C onto a non-chord tone, the 2, the G, and settle onto the F, just as we saw there, dropping down to a 2 and then the root. We're on a 6 here, a non-chord tone, but we run down scale-wise to the B note of the G chord, the 3, and resolve to the C. So you can see that 80% or so of what we're playing would be chord tones. Most of the other notes are passing tones or neighbor tones, where you're putting them in between chord tones. Only rarely do you step from non-chord tone to non-chord tone, and then you have to listen for it and see why they're doing it. Here it seems to be that this would just be a theme of the song, to drop to a 2 and resolve to the 1. We get the same idea in the second half. I'm not going to analyze those notes out for you right now, we'll just play them now. So first of all, I want to play them straight, which is what you would expect normally, but these notes can also be swung 16th, so we can look at that as well. So we get C, E, D, C, A, A. G, G, C, 1 and 2. Here we get 2 16ths and an 8th, so we get a little bit of a pause in the rhythm on that third note. 16ths, D, E, D, C, dropping from C to A, and G. A couple of bars are going to be repetitions. G, G, C. Even melodically, you can probably hear the dissonance in that leap. Here's this bar again. C, B, C, G. That fits the C chord. On the F, we outline the chord with the A and C. You can hear that as we play the tune. You can hear the 4 chord. And a little bit of color there. And then the 6, the E, down to the C note. Play that again, and then move to the second half. In the second half, we have sequences. You can see these 3 note patterns walking down. G, F, E, G, F, E, D, F, E, D, C, E. So you can hear sequence there. Bum, 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 ba, da, 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 da. Chord tones on the G, 5 to 1. As we've talked about in your soloing and melody writing, that's an idea you'd like to get used to. Walking up or down a scale with one pattern that repeats over and over again. It really seems to stretch that scale out, and it makes the range feel greater. Now we get a different sequence, C down to B, up to C, and up to E. So we've done lower neighbor tone, then a leap, and we'll repeat that on the next chord. So that's C, B, C, E, then we repeat it on a D, D, C, D, F, then we do the original sequence on the E. So that line, I've stopped on the D there because the E and F will feel like a pickup into this phrase rather than the end of that phrase. Now we hit the E and F and come on here. E, F, and then we redo our sequence. G, F, E, G, F, E, D, F, E, D, C, E, D, G. So these 2 bars are identical again. Slightly different sequence, we do the C, B, C, but drop down to the 5th, the chord tone, outline the F just like we did earlier. So although I've done nothing to memorize this song at all, even as I'm talking about it, you can hear how easy it would be to memorize it when you know what the sequences are doing. So I'll start on G, hit the G again, come down from F. Hit the F again, come down from E, and then we ended with a 5 root on a G chord. So the next sequence does a lower neighbor tone from C to B to C and jumps up, repeats on the D, and then the original sequence, and we end with the D note. I didn't remember that one. Now we run up from E to F and do the first sequence again, so 2 bars are identical. And then here we get a whole new part. We get the lower neighbor tone with the G, and then that pattern we learned on F before. I didn't memorize it then, but we did talk about it, so I can think about it right now. It goes from A up to C, drops to the 9, then the root. And then we just run down the scale on the G chord. So without even trying, and certainly it's not in my muscle memory at all, I've actually memorized those 2 lines just by analyzing them out loud at this moment with you. This is the kind of thing you want to do when you're working on a song. Let's see if I can duplicate that again. So sequence starting on G, F, E, then we finish with the DG, different sequence, CBC, D, then the descending sequence again, first sequence again on line 2, F, E, D to G, different kind of sequence, CBC with a drop down to the G, run up from the F, 2 chord tones, then the G to F, and down the scale. That's the kind of thing I'd actually be thinking about while I worked a song out and tried to memorize it. As we move through these books the way I am, there's no way I'm spending enough time on each to memorize them, but when you want to get really good at a song, do take the time to memorize it. I've been talking lately with people about memory work and how rote memory is actually understanding. Once you've memorized something, it goes into your brain and can be sorted out. It becomes your own personal knowledge, which you can re-explore, recategorize, turn around, investigate, and analyze. Because it's in your head and it's your own personal knowledge, that's where a lot of the understanding can come from. You can see here where I combined both ideas, learning by rote and learning by some kind of pattern. Of course, because I know what a sequence is and how they operate, that made it that much easier for me. I didn't bother applying it up here yet, but now that I think about it, I probably should. So here I'm just going to play through the top and bottom for you, 2 times a piece, just as you would practice it. 1 E and a. Part 2. In case you want to play that while I play harmony, here's the harmony part. 1 E and a 2 and. Lastly, just for a second, I want to show you what it would be like if you swung these. When they're really flying, you can't tell, but when you slow it down, you can hear that a lot of players will swing the 16ths. So instead of equal, 1 E and a 2 and, they'll have that swing feel that our 8s often get. 1 E and a 2 and 1 and 2, 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and a 2 and. So I'll just play a little bit of that. Maybe once through without repeats. 1 E and a 2 and. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and a 4 and. Hear the difference? Hopefully I held it the whole time. See you guys later. Take her easy.